My name is Maurice Benard. I play, I was going to say I play Sonny on General Hospital. No, if you like what you see, subscribe, hit this little button so we can keep doing this channel. And you know. Anyway, let's get to the point here. I have today on State of Mind my good friend, his name is Majid Raees. Is that right?
It's Majid Raees, yes.
Raees, yes. All right. Majid Raees. He's a trainer to some big stars that he can't reveal because he gets in trouble, and so I can't tell you who he trains. But I can say that he's like, I've seen him fight in the ring, and it was like watching Bruce Lee, and he's that good. But aside from that, we're going to talk to him about his culture, just who he is. You see how I did this, Maj? It's
very nice transition.
Yeah, you like that?
I loved it.
All right, cool. It's Majid Raees, everybody.
Hi guys, nice to meet you, and thanks for Maurice. I'm honored actually. Been watching you, having all the guests come on the show, and it's been really. I've been touched by how you approach people. It's really nice.
Well, you know, you just gotta be yourself.
That's true.
And that's it. So I want to talk to you about where you grew up.
I'll make it short and concise.
Yeah.
I was born in Kuwait. My parents moved from Pakistan to Kuwait, but I'm actually Pakistani. So
full-blooded.
Full-blooded, but my mom and dad are Pakistani. And so when my dad moved to Pakistan, my mom was already there. She was born in Kuwait, but she was Pakistani. So when I was born, so I was Pakistani, but in Kuwait, you don't get the citizenship because at the time, they were not giving away the citizenship. So I was Pakistani. So after, when I was 13 years old, I went back to Pakistan again because I wasn't good in studies, and I was very hyper, very active, very physical all the time. So my dad sent me back to Pakistan to the boarding school to study there. And from there onwards, I wasn't still very good in studies, but I was very athletic. So there were a lot of sports in boarding schools, which I was doing swimming and gymnastics and karate and a lot of activities, running and sprinting, and I picked up a lot of sports from there. And it was pretty intense because it was a different culture as where I came from, living in buildings, and Kuwait is a very hot country as compared to Pakistan. We have
what's the weather like?
It's always, you're in the middle of the desert and temperature very hot.
Like
90s and 100s and plus. And so you had to be in the building.
But it's humid, or not?
And humid, not as much as compared to other countries, but it's very humid, very humid.
Wow.
But it was pretty hard because we only stayed in the buildings because the temperature was so hot in the daytime. We could only go outside in the evening to go in the playground.
Really?
So we couldn't go outside because it was so hot. So we were living inside the buildings, and we couldn't. The air conditioning was on 24/7, and it was very hard to have outdoor activities. But when we did get a chance, it was a short time, a window when the sunset would go down, and it would still be very hot.
Let me just get into some stuff. And you don't, you can talk as long as you want, but it's better to just go a little shorter. Now, your father passed away when you were how old?
My father passed away when I was in my 20s, and I had come to States at that time. And my father was still in Pakistan.
Oh, he was in Pakistan?
He was in Pakistan. And because I had moved back to Pakistan, so then my father and mother came over, and they had broken up at that time. So I stayed with my dad, and my mom had come back to Pakistan, and then she moved to States with my sister. And she said, "Come with me." I said, "I want to stay with my dad." And she says, "You don't want to come with me and your sister?" I said, "I want to stay with my dad." It was something about me and my dad had some kind of relationship that was very deep. He spoke 8 languages. He was very smart. He was a philosopher and a law degree. And he came from a village where he educated himself to be anything. And he's a very smart man and a great philosopher. So I stayed with him. And I always had a dream to come to America, train under Benny the Jet. I used to watch movies when I was a teenager, and this was an
Now,
opportunity
Benny
to go
the Jet's like the best kickboxer in history. And
In the world.
He never lost a fight. And anyway, then Majid became his right-hand guy. And, go ahead.
I became his protege,
Yeah.
but I wanted to come to States, and my mom was already there. But then I don't want to go with her, but eventually I made my dream come true, and I made it myself to States, and I made it, and I went to see her. After 8 years, my mom was going crazy seeing me after 8 years, that my son has finally come to see me. And when I got there, I still after 3 months, I said, Mom, I'm leaving to California. She says, why? I said, I was looking for Benny the Jet. I'm coming to train with him. He's my hero, so I've spent all my life looking after him. This is the reason I'm here. And before I moved to States, I was already Taekwondo national champion. I was boxing at an amateur level. And the reason I was working so hard, because I wanted to impress him, because I know how good he was. And that's the first time I saw him was in TV with Jackie Chan.
Okay, let's get back to your dad, because
Okay,
I want you to get.
so
I want some emotions to come out now.
well,
How was it when your father? First of all, before your dad, I want to get into mental health in the Middle East. How is mental health in the Middle East? It's very important for me to know that.
it's
And I think
very
it's important for the.
it's very underrated, and people are, if they have mental illness, they most of the time they consider them as possessed by
What?
some evil. Yeah, they think they're possessed with some spiritual things like that, but they are a spiritual thing. We have those external energies. They do come in. I do know them. I've seen my cousins go through it, and mental illness is pretty much like it's common here. It's common over there, but it's not related as we as
It's not looked upon like
we look as here. So it's because it's underrated. But you'll see a lot of suicide, more suicides as you can imagine. I remember when I was a kid going to a bakery to pick up the bread, and I hear a loud noise, and above the bakery there was a shop, and we heard later on that the guy killed himself with a shotgun. And it was very common. People
of mental illness?
mental illness, suicides were very common over there, and we always heard that we couldn't comprehend what it was all about. But now that I came to States and being away with you and you telling me and educating me all this stuff, it's pretty evident. A lot of people are not being treated like we get treated here.
Is that culture like my culture, which is Spanish, where it's the macho, and people are looked upon like weak. If you have,
you can never show your weakness. You can never
I think
show
yours may be worse.
It's
your
very
culture.
very egotistic, because we are looked at. Everything is always about honor. You cannot look dishonor to you because you dishonor your family.
So what happens out there with people that have
people run away, and they sometimes they die with panic of their heart, a lot of heart conditions, a lot of stress, because they have to pick up their image all the time. They'll be hungry, no food. The kids are driving hunger, but the kids have to keep the pride up. And that's what gets them in serious trouble. That's where they leave towns and go to villages back again. It's pretty
Do they
intense.
have therapists?
Well, the thing is, we have a lot of doctors, but these people don't believe in therapists. That's the thing. They don't think there's a cure, like they need a helpful therapist. So it's very even now, it's very now we have grown up much more in Islamabad, main cities, but the villages still they hit back very backwards, and it's pretty sad. Like you will see a lot of kids going through a lot of trauma. They don't know how to deal with kids. I've been through, and I've seen a lot of tragic things in my life, and as they grow up, they never found the answer and they end up dying with the same symptoms.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't even get married till late in their life.
And a lot of, I'm sure a lot of people, a lot of kids or whatever, they have bipolar, anxiety, depression, and keep it bottled in, because they're afraid if I tell my dad, he's gonna, maybe even beat me or treat me really bad, and I'm gonna not say anything. That's, let me tell you something. That, not to that extreme with my mom and dad, but I kept it in. I didn't know what I was. So when I finally had my first breakdown, I think I told you already. I remember I was crying, and my mom was on the bed, and she's, "What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you?" And I said, I really couldn't tell her what it was. And then she goes, "Sit over here." So I sat next to her, and I was crying, and I held her, and I said, "Mom, we gotta let go," because I knew that my mom was too possessive.
Well, there's something that I think I need to share at this time. Because the kids are lost and they don't have as much activities that we have over here. They will play cricket maximum. But kids want to look out some way out. So these Talibans would come in and hire kids. Hey, you want to go outside? We'll give you a gun. Be a part of something important. Put religion as a subject. And they would recruit these young kids. In fact, I will never forget this. They came up to me and I was so excited. I'm going to use gun. They give me AK-47. Hey, we'll give you army jackets. You're a part of us. We'll take you there. You fight for the right cause. Protect your fellow country, religion people. Help them out. And I was excited. I was like, wow, they're going to give me a gun. We end up going war. As a teenager, it gives you inspiration. So I told my dad that I think I'm going to go for a war. Then my dad came close to me and slapped me so hard. And I'm so grateful that he did that, because it made me realize the slap that hurt me so bad. Like, I can't even take a slap. And here I am going to take somebody's life. And he said to me, he says, "These are evil people. Back away from these people. You do not understand what they're doing. They're taking for the wrong cause. This is not your concern. Don't ever talk to them. Don't ever deal with them." And if that slap would not have happened to me, I would have literally gone to war and have young kids have shot. And I've seen so many of my friends at the time, they were gone, and now I can't see them. They used to come back and tell me, "Hey, I shot so many guys, and I did this from far away. We went inside, we were walking the sheep, and we took a gun, and shot them." Telling me these stories were so scary.
What's the age? No age limit?
No, they were recruiting.
Like 10-year-old kids?
Because most of the kids who want to run away, they run away at they're 15, 16. They run away from their homes because they have no outlet. So they would give us a little bit money. They want to give a little bit money to kids. Of course you're going to get money. If a little bit of money, parents don't have no money over there. They hardly can survive. So they give them money. They give them guns. They give them power. They feel authorities. They don't want to be with their parents. So the kids were taken away for months and months. They would train them, and some of them wouldn't come back. And they were like, "Oh, he's dead. Don't worry. He's a warrior. So he's Martin. He's going in heaven." It's easy to manipulate when you have religious to manipulate. And you have these priests who would translate the way that you want to translate for your own benefits. But as you grow up, because lucky for me, I did study Arabic. So I knew the meaning in what the Quran says. So I know the meaning of it. But the problem was the priest would translate the way they want to. If he worked for that kind of group, they would translate the things that they want to translate, and they would recruit kids and recruit the teenagers. And it was very, very big, because especially where I come from, it's a northern region area. I was studying in Abbottabad. That's where the Bin Laden was caught, was Abbottabad. It was the army base camp. So I used to use, the reason I was so athletic, I lived around, and my father bought a house there, because we were close to the army military camp, and we have all the training facility. I used to go there and use the military camps. It was open for public, not like, in the army. So I used to go in the morning, climb up the rows 50 feet up. It was so scary, but I did it. Then I used to monkey climb, go across the street. I used to train all these ropes and up and down hurdles, and I was very excited, like I'm part of the army.
Now, what about women in Pakistan? How's that? I mean, I know you have to wear, what do they call that?
They have to wear a hijab, but now time has changed. But at that time, in northern regions, there's still some part of the Pakistan is very restricted. And it's not the religion says it, it's because the culture has put so much emphasis on it that they grew up covering. In religion, doesn't say you have to cover your face, but these women cover up their face.
Yeah, they're covered up.
The religion says only to cover up your hair. Just like when you go to church, they cover up their hair.
Oh, right.
But they don't say cover up your face, cover your hide. But the men are so uneducated, not been informed or not been studied. They have never been to an education place. So they trained all their life to be, that's how the wife is. She just stays behind you, never talks to you. And time has just changed, but the villages still have a lot of problems. And they abuse their wives.
So you're telling me it's better now?
Well, in the cities, yes. Imran Khan has come. he did make a world of a difference. He was the only Pakistani prime minister who is a cricketer, became a world champion, and he made our country win the world champion. And after that, he got into government. He's done so much for government. When his sister died of the cancer, he opened a free institution for cancer institution for Pakistan to have it. He's done a lot of remarkable things. He's the most well-educated, studied in England, and very well man. So I'll not go into that part, but we have a good prime minister. When there is a poor country, the government is stealing from the people all the time. And because we have corrupted governors, because of that reason, we have corrupted people who come in, like people with Al-Qaeda, who were part of the country first to fight against the Afghanistan, to help against Afghanistan fight Russian. And then when they stop the war over there, they start coming within the country to take over control. Right now, a lot of people are going through a lot of troubles because they want to recruit more people for their power and strength, because they were going against young generations. After 5, 6, they brainwash them. In 6, 7 months, they take them to the camps, feed them, train them, take them down. It's pretty hard life. Women are being abused a lot because they beat them up, and the women can't express because they can't go back to their homes. They say, you're embarrassment for us if you come back home. So sometimes they die and they kill themselves in the house. Suicide. If they have kids, then they will even have double torture because they can't let their kids go. It's really bad in the villages, but time has changed so much. Yes, cities are growing in a very vast way, but there are so many northern regions area are still stuck with something.
So let's get back to your dad real quick. And when he passed away, how did you feel, and did it affect you? Like, could you ever imagine that your dad? How old were you? 16, 15?
No, I met my dad. I was leaving, before I say goodbye, last time I saw him was when I was leaving for States. And I said, Dad, I'm leaving for States. And I was only about 19 or 20, something like that. And my dad, he said, I'm happy for you. And he hugged me. And my dad had a very incredible intuition. Everything he said in the past was incredible. But before I say the story, I was arguing with my dad. I was about 18 years old. I was arguing with my dad, and my dad said, stop acting smart. You won't even be there to give me a shoulder to my grave. It didn't make any sense. About half a year later, I got an invitation that I applied for the visa, I can go to States. So when I got the visa, I was hugging him, saying, Dad, I'm leaving. He hugs me. And he holds me tight longer than ever before. And he kept on holding me. And he smiled at me, looked at me, says, I love you. And so I sat in the car. We had an alley. It was about a half a mile. So I sat in the car started driving, and my dad was waving at me. And after several minutes back, I looked by the back mirror, he was still waving at me. He was still waving at me. And the car turned and left. And a couple of years later, I found out that he had a certain heart problems issues, and he was yelling for my name. Call my son, call my son. And that really broke my heart, because when he said to me that I won't be there for the grave, I couldn't make it. Because for me to come back in the country, I had to take a flight, then a second flight, and in Pakistan they bury after 24 hours. So when I'm tired. So it really hurt me. So what he had said, and I know that he had already foreseen, it was the most brutal thing that ever happened to me, because the next day, Sensei Benny had invited me to go to this premiere with him. A couple of days later, the movie was called My Father. Paul Quinn was playing that movie. I couldn't stop crying in the premiere, that I had to, for a whole an hour and a half, I had to leave. I couldn't stop crying. It was so painful. And I still regret that.
What do you regret?
That I spent more time when I said I loved him.
I mean, isn't that what it always, the fact that when people pass away, you're always thinking like guilt and regret. You know, you never got to say bye. I have never got to say bye to people too. So yeah, it's tough. It's tough. All right, let's get into. I want to get into something that, from you, it affected me, and I'll probably never forget it. You were, Majid was this great kickboxer, and then he got into boxing. And he was actually a damn good boxer either, but it's very difficult when you haven't boxed since you were little, and you take away two of your weapons. It's very difficult to do, but he tried to do it. I think there's more money to be made there, right?
Now, the management had said that, the kickboxing wasn't that big at the time.
Right,
UFC wasn't there yet. And they said, if you turn to boxing. So in short time, I turned from kickboxer to boxing, became the Golden Glove champion, Blue and Gold national champion, then I turned professional. And the fight that Maurice was supporting me because I was very fast, because I had a good speed, but I didn't have as much experience that I spent in my kickboxing world. The fact was, I worked hard and did as much as I can, but the kid that I was fighting he had taken some drugs, which I found out years later. And at that time, we didn't have as severe testing that we have now, before the fight and after the fight. You can get tested before, it's fine. But if you but once you get tested, you can take it afterwards. And he had taken PCP, and I would hit him as hard as I hit him. He would come back harder.
Let me tell the story from my point of view. So I go see Majid in this fight, and I'm sitting with Bernard Parks, the chief of police. He was right with me. And I said, yeah, my friend Majid is going to be fighting. And Paula was with me. And Majid is in the ring, gets in the ring. And my buddy Jeff was one of his trainers.
One of the partners, yeah.
And Benny. And so I'm waiting. And these guys go at each other. Now I'm sitting like pretty close, but not real close. I could hear the punches cracking their faces. Now, Majid lost, but Majid also hit him a lot. But like he said, the dude was on something, so he wasn't affected, but Majid was. And we were saying here, Paula, stop the fight. They wouldn't stop the fight. You fought to the end.
Yeah, because I was not just passive. I kept on punching. He would punch me, I would punch. It was like a trade.
Yeah,
it was the most hard. And my training camp was very hard. If I didn't have any 1/4 of the training, this kid would have got me in serious trouble. And he did. He got me in trouble, and I went after him. But you realize that there are some people take some things to make them extraordinarily powerful. Any normal guy he would have gone easily down. This kid was taking so much. I hit him. Every time I hit him, he'd come back 10 times harder.
It was 4 rounds.
Yeah, it was insane.
So he gets out of the ring, and now there's a lot of bad people in there. And I'm feeling the energy. And then Majid's in front of me, sitting down. His nose is right here. And you can see he's just not there. And I remember this guy came up, and he was, I don't want to say what he was. I don't want to get in trouble. But he wasn't cool. And he said something about Majid. And I wanted to just, And so then Paula comes up, because Paula knows everything. And she says, we got to take Majid to the hospital. I'm like, why? She goes, honey, we're going to take him now. And I said, all right. So I grabbed Majid, took him to the hospital. What did you have, brain? What was it?
Well, the thing is, they tested out. First of all, I had a broken nose. I said, the insurance, the athletic commission is responsible for fixing the nose. It was great. They checked out my nose. It was broken. I said, I'll get it fixed. Well, by the way, I broke my nose 7 times. And then when I got to the hospital, I said, I'll take care of the hospital. So they did MRI on my head just to check it out. for testing purposes. When they did the MRI, they didn't just find my broken nose. They found something which would change my life for the rest of my life forever. When they did the MRI, they found there was a blood capillaries in my head, which they thought it was a brain hemorrhage. Now this is where everything changes. The blood capillary which they thought was a brain hemorrhage, like internal bleeding, which could kill me. The license immediately, Athletic Commission canceled my license. And now we're not worried about the license, we're worried about the internal bleeding. If the internal bleeding happens, you can die within 3 days or 2 days or within 24 hours. So they have kept me in the hospital monitoring my brain thing. Anyway, anything to find out that everything was still there, not moving, they said it's fine, we can go back home, but they've canceled my license. And I think, how is that possible? I don't feel anything wrong with it. After my whole 1 year, medical testing, after testing, flying to San Francisco, driving there, now I lost all my work, lost my job, I couldn't do anything. For almost 2 years, going back and forth the medical testing, I finally found out one of the greatest doctors. He was one of my friend, David Stoller, who's the #1 MRI imagery. He does seminars around the world. He found out, he says, Majid, you don't have a brain hemorrhage. You have a mole in the head which has extra blood capillaries inside. Every 1 out of 200 people have it. You have to just keep an eye on it. Long terms, it can do something, but you might or might not do anything. But that extra blood in there that looks like a hemorrhage is a mole. And during that time, the universe didn't want me to succeed what I wanted to do and stop all my career. So I couldn't fight in America. So I had to go out of the country to fight in Japan in kickboxing and other matches. I was very lucky to win all the matches out of the country, but it changed my life from there onwards. I should say it was a blessing, because when one door shuts, so many doors other open up, and made me realize that my whole journey, the whole purpose of being a world champion was not just to get the belt. It was for me to understand myself and my purpose in this world, meeting great people like him and realizing there's much more than fighting in life itself. And when you realize you're close to death, at that moment you feel like you cannot live. The doctor said to me, you will die. You can die within an hour or you can die within 2 months. We do not know. And because he only knew what his information was, so it really freaked me out. When you get close to death, every perspective of your life changes. And I think that's when everything changed for me dramatically. And it just goes on, and other part of my life, when I get staph infection, even gets worse. That's another part of my story, that I was training, and then after a while my stomach was hurting me, and my wife says, what's wrong? I said, I'm in the bathroom on the floor, I'm laying in pain. She says, you're just acting. And accidentally my mom calls up. She said, what's wrong? I said, I have a huge stomach pain. She says, go to the hospital. I go to the hospital. They found out my appendix was bursting. I only have a few minutes. They said, we have to operate now. Anyway, after the operation was done, they gave me a staph infection in the hospital. And within several weeks, I lost all my leg muscles. They were disappearing. I had no more legs. I couldn't walk. I was in a fetal position. Me and my wife at that time had broken up, so she sees my car parked outside the apartment, had not moved for almost a month. She comes at the door was open, she sees me in a car, she sees me in the bed in a fetal position, she screams. My eyeballs were in my skull. I couldn't breathe, I couldn't talk, I couldn't see who was in front of me. I was 135 pounds. My normal weight is 165. And that was me in a fit shape, And from 165 to 135, and being what weight I am, I could not move. So I called my uncle. I said, I think I'm dying, and I think this is it. The hospital can't figure out. I went to the hospital 4 or 5 times. They said, we don't know what it is. We gave me steroids after steroids, send me back home. The appendix operation gave me staph infection. That triggered everything up. The hospital could figure out what it was, so I flew to Dubai. I couldn't even walk. So my uncle sent 2 people to pick me up on a wheelchair and take me to Dubai. When I got to Dubai, the doctor said he has 24 hours before we amputate his legs. The infection could spread up. And that was the moment I was on the bed, on my deathbed. I saw myself elevating. I was above and I saw my body down there. And that's when I saw myself there. And I wanted to go up in the light and never want to come back. Because it was so peaceful up there. And the only reason I came back because my son was here. And I came back and I woke up. They said it was 4 days later I woke up. And all my relatives have come from all part of the world to meet me. And I think that was the time that everything changed for me. I couldn't see everything the same way. I don't see people normal at the way I see them. I see people in a very deep way. I see people in a very, life has changed. I can never see the world the same way again. Since that time, I'm not the same person.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Now I want to talk about something else. Let's talk about kids. Since, you know, you have a 16-year-old.
15.
15, I have
16.
16.
He just turned 16.
I mean, like with Joshua, I always thought when he was younger that he could be bipolar because the kid was out of control. And my wife would say, "No, honey, I don't think so." I'm like, "You don't think so?" She goes, "I don't think so. Just wait." And it turned out he's not, at least for now, right? Because we don't know what happens later. What about Nicholas? What do you feel he has or is going through?
You know, that's the most hardest thing. I always feel everything. I think that's the biggest pain that I carry, because the people you love, if they're in pain, you're in the worst place. And I can see my son has severe anxiety, and he has somewhat of some severe stress that I can't control. In public, he can't talk. He has no friends. He was his little kid. He's 15 now. He has no friends. And his mom is isolated in the house, even stopped going homeschooling. She says, "I'm just going to do homeschooling." And I said, "You got to let him go outside. He can't interact with people, can't interact with friends." And this is the biggest problem that most parents do. Some people do, not all of them. And I was I should say, unfortunate one that my mother of my child did not come in the same understanding that I have.
But you have to also take some of the. I think you were a little too hard on him and tough on him.
Because I didn't understand. I was always tough on him. I said, "Why is he behaving like this? Why is he acting like this? Why doesn't he come up and talk to people like?"
But we've talked already. Can you imagine? It's not really him. It's he's got an illness.
Yeah.
Like I have an illness.
Yeah, and you don't understand.
I shouldn't have hit the thing.
Yeah, and you don't understand it, that you have that illness, because I did not know they had illness. You have to, if somebody's sick, you don't approach them the same way as normal people.
Exactly.
And I learned that you got to approach them differently.
Right.
But if you think they're normal, then you get upset because why is he behaving like this?
Exactly. But he's not.
So I had to relearn. I'm just still learning from Maurice that when we had a talk, like, I got to approach him differently. It's not his mistake. If somebody's sick, you have to approach them in a different way.
Yes.
And if he's not catching up with your conversation, that means you have to go down to their level and have a conversation.
Or up to, the kid is, Nicholas is a lot smarter than we all think he is.
Yeah, exactly. He's very extremely smart.
And
and like you said, he's smart in some levels, and other emotional level, he's extremely low.
Yeah.
So people understand, either you're extremely smart, no, it doesn't work like that.
I hate to interrupt, but I just heard this morning, the statistics on kids that are mentally ill with mental health, that they're in trouble because of this pandemic and everything.
Serious trouble.
It's worse because they're just and nobody understands.
Nobody understands. And the fact is that I just came from a gym. I do a seminar out there, kickboxing. I do a video there, and they said they have a problem because parents are coming with the kids complaining to us. They don't realize putting them in the house, sheltering them up, and not giving them ability to interact, it causing severe anxiety problems. And parents don't understand that this is very important. This is so important to understand what they are feeling. Instead of ordering them, instead of demanding them, try to understand what they're feeling.
Yeah.
And like this same thing you taught me, I couldn't understand what my son was feeling. So I was like, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
I was getting upset with him. I didn't have to realize, no, I can't get upset with him. Because he is going through something that I have not experienced.
Yeah.
He's going through something that has the anxiety of not dealing with people, not seeing people, never met
Yeah.
anybody, being isolated, not able to express his expression, his anger, his frustrations, his not ability to talk to me.
Yes.
So every time he comes to me, there's one thing, thank God I did this when he was young. I said, give me energy. He said, what does that mean? So I would teach him to hug me. So I noticed whenever he would not see, he's not feeling good, he said, Papa, give me energy. And he says it by himself.
Wow.
He said, Papa, give me energy.
That's
so when he said that to
beautiful.
me, so I would hold him. Are you okay? I said, Papa, I just want your energy. And he can't, but I give him energy, I talk to him, and he would hug me. I'm not talking about 5 or 10 seconds.
That's beautiful.
Sometimes he hold me for more than a minute, and I keep quiet, and I want to hug him more. And then he'll kiss me on my neck. He said, Papa, I love you. And I said, is there anything I can do? Then he said, oh, just nothing. I'm just going through this. And so I start talking slowly and slowly. Thank God I built this relationship, give me energy. Like I would hug him. So the hugging is an important thing in my culture. Very important. And we're missing that.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And you see a lot of parents don't hug their kids.
I'm bad.
It's horrible. It's
I'm
like
bad.
it's the most valuable thing we can give them, feeling of touch. Because the only thing that I remember with my dad, Maurice, in the last hug he hugged me, I wish I could hug longer. It was just so, my heart just was melting, and I can feel his heart hugging me. And he said, and he's hugging me, and I feel his heart melting to me. And I wish I would hold longer to my dad. And thank God that's what I did with my son. The first thing I did was taught him how to hug me. And in life, when he was gone, the only thing I remembered was the hug that he gave me.
Damn.
And the words that he tell me, but the hug was the most deep thing that I felt. So if I can get somebody to say something, that if anything you do, guys, hug your kids. And
yeah, listen, we're gonna wind down here, but it's a great point, and it's a great point because it's something. If I regret anything in my life, it is exactly what Majid's talking about. That if I could take back anything in my life, I know I've talked about it a lot, and it still hurts me to this day. I'll tell a little story that I told Majid before. I haven't been affectionate with my family, and because just the way I was brought up, and it just, I don't know how to explain it, and it's not a good thing. But I remember my little girl, Cassidy, she was in the room in there, and I remember hugging her, and the way she hugged me was like she was saying, man, I need this. And so I'm working on it, and like Majid said, anybody out there, you know, say I love you, and say, you know, I had an acting coach once say to me, you're never going to make it until you move out of your house and you tell everybody you love that you love them. That's what he said to me. He's a smart dude. I learned a lot from this guy. And he said that. You got to tell your parents you love them. You got to tell. And it's never been done. So, but it's never too late is what I'm saying.
That's right.
We you know, he did it. He might have done other things that weren't good. And I haven't done it. And I'm trying to inch. And it's so amazing. I have one daughter, another daughter that I hug, and it's tense.
she's not comfortable.
Because she's
never felt it.
No, she's almost saying, don't try now, you know? But anyway, okay, look, this has been a great talk, especially this last little bit we had. It was amazing. I think it's important. And I think I'm going to do another state of mind on children, figure out something that I could talk about. I want to say to Maj, thank you. Thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for opening up. Thank you for speaking about your culture. the fight, everything. You know, thank you for that.
Thank you,
Appreciate
and I
it.
appreciate you having me here, man. It's my pleasure.
It's
I
been
hope
great.
I can.
This is like a friendship, therapy friendship.
Yeah.
You know? It
And that-
has to feel like that,
yeah.
like we're comfortable, we just talk. And I mean, we've already, you know, Majid and I have actually already talked a lot about this, but when you get into this little thing, it becomes...
It becomes a little magnifies deeper, different. I know Maurice for almost 20 plus years. It's so funny. 20 plus years.
Yeah.